Hi, I'm Becky. My symptoms started when I was about 16. I started to have lots of acid reflux. I was hiccuping a lot and I was vomiting quite a lot whenever I was eating or drinking. I ended up having a hiatus hernia and like general reflux disease. So I ended up having an operation when I was 19 to fix a hiatus hernia. And I had something called a fundoplication to help with my reflux. After that, I noticed that I started to get other gastro symptoms. So I was eating really slowly, I was struggling to swallow, and whenever I kept going back to the doctors, they just kept saying, oh, it's from the surgery, it will get better over time. And then it was up until I was about 24, 25, that I was finally able to get another endoscopy, had some biopsies taken, had an allergy blood test, and then they finally found that it was the Eosinophilic Oesophagitis. But by that point, my symptoms had got a lot worse. The swallowing, I was finding I was getting food stuck. I was getting the tight pressure in my chest, which kind of like banded around my chest, and it just didn't feel very nice. And it was putting me off my eating, which was making me lose more weight. And they were my main symptoms, to be honest. Before the diagnosis, I think I was on my third endoscopy by now. And they'd referred me to a specialist. And she kept pushing for me to have another endoscopy, but to have biopsies taken. So I had the biopsies taken. She booked me in for a blood test so that I could be tested for any allergens. And then it was the biopsies that came back positive. And then for the allergens, it came back positive for 4 of the different foods. So she was kind of able to then put it down to it being this condition. My immediate allergies are the milk, egg, wheat and nuts. I also found that I started to become sensitive to eating meat, so I had to stop eating meat. Sometimes different foods on and off affect me, like fruit and some vegetables. Some days can be absolutely fine, sometimes it can set off my triggers. I do have hay fever as well, and sometimes I find if I'm out in like a grassy field or if there's lots of pollen, sometimes I can feel that can set off my symptoms as well. Sometimes I find other smells of food. So if I'm like chopping up a cucumber, sometimes out of the blue, I can feel it making my chest go tight. But sometimes again, it's absolutely fine. I don't seem to have a set pattern apart from the 4 main ones that I know about. So when I first got diagnosed, I restarted taking omeprazole, which I've kind of been on and off since I was 16 when I was first having the reflux problems. So they put me back on a regular course of that. I then started to do the food elimination. I wasn't advised to do the 6 diet food elimination. I just did the eggs, milk, wheat and nuts. Because they were the ones that they found from my blood test for the allergens. After that, I kind of just tried to manage it with diet and omeprazole, but my symptoms were very up and down. So I tried the Jovesa, which I started, and unfortunately around the same time when I was diagnosed with the EOE, I got diagnosed with another autoimmune condition with my thyroid. So I was having a lot of symptoms from my thyroid and the EOE, which kind of overlapped. And unfortunately, when I tried the Jovesa, it threw my thyroid levels out of balance, so I had to stop that. I got them back to a normal level. I wanted to retry the Jovesa because it was helping with my EOE symptoms, and it did feel like it kind of put me into a bit of a remission. So I tried it again, but unfortunately my body wasn't having it. My thyroid levels went funny again. So I kind of accepted the Jovesa isn't the way for me. So at the moment I'm kind of I'm back on the omeprazole, and I'm just trying to manage it with my diet. I'm just trying to be mindful of what I'm eating at the moment. It started to affect me because eating kind of became a bit like a chore, because it felt like whatever I was eating was making my chest go tight and my throat go tight. Obviously, my family and my other half are very patient with me, but whenever we would go out for food, I'm always the last person to finish eating. So going out for a meal or something, everyone kind of expects to be there for a couple of hours because it takes me so long to eat. But before getting a diagnosis, it felt like a lot of pressure, because it just feels like I'm kind of taking the mick, like I don't have a reason to be eating this slow, I'm just slow. So obviously mentally it started to have quite a big effect, because it felt something didn't feel right, but nobody knew what it was, and they just kept trying to give me PPIs. So up until diagnosis, it was a bit of a mental struggle as well as a physical struggle. So it was a relief to finally find out what it was. And there's definitely some challenges with going out socially, especially when there's a group of people. I'm finding whenever we go somewhere to eat, it has to be somewhere that there's at least one thing on the menu that I can eat. Because even though, I guess in a sense, a vegan diet and a gluten-free diet, wheat-free diet, what I'm on at the moment, even though there's a lot more food options available, there's still a lot of places that aren't completely friendly. And there's definitely a bit of anxiety for going out for eating, because, like I said, sometimes I can be triggered and it's not a very nice experience. And sometimes I can go out and be absolutely fine. But there's always that bit of fear in the background of your mind of, oh, is it going to flare up? And am I going to have to leave because it just is very uncomfortable? So yeah, it can be a bit of a challenge to try not to let that impact your social life. And I'm very grateful because all the people that are around me know of the condition, so they do try to actively find somewhere that has food available for me as well, just so I'm not like left out, sort of thing. In my personal life, I'm a nurse. I work in a cardiology outpatient kind of setting. I do find having this condition definitely has its good and bad. Obviously, I've had experience being a patient myself, so it definitely does give me a lot of empathy for patients, because I know what it's like being on the other side. And definitely it helps if anybody kind of comes in with gastro problems, that I can give them a bit of advice and kind of know what they're going through. The downside to it is something as simple as a lunch break. I have to be very mindful of what I bring to work, because eating quickly just isn't in the nature. So having a half an hour lunch break is very important, and trying to eat as much food as you can in half an hour without making yourself feel sick can sometimes be a challenge. I find as well, my voice has become a bit more hoarse over the years as well, where it affects my swallow and my voice and everything. Sometimes I can find it difficult communicating throughout the day, especially if my voice is starting to disappear a little bit. I know that can be quite challenging. And if I've had a flare up in the daytime as well, trying to push through the discomfort of that so I can carry on and deal with my job. I first learned about the EOS network. One was from the clinician that I was seeing at the time. It was recommended by her. And my other half also found the website when I was first diagnosed with EOE. I found the website very helpful. There was a lot of really useful information on there. It makes you feel not so alone in the condition anymore, because you can see that there's other people who do have it, and you're not just going crazy and making up this condition in your head. There was a lot of useful videos on there, links. lots of information about research. I ended up joining one of the Wellbeing Wednesdays Zoom meetings, which was where I first met Amanda. She's been very supportive all the way through. Finding out more things on the EOS network, it made me want to volunteer as well. So I've been able to get to know Amanda a little bit more, know a bit about her background and where she began with this network. Resource-wise, the EOS network has been a massive help, and I recommend that to so many people if it sounds ever so slightly if they might have an EOE kind of condition. Just don't give up hope. There's definitely help out there. You're not alone in the condition. It is a tricky condition to live with because it's not well known, and I think people do underestimate how it can make you feel. And if you need to push for tests with the doctors, don't be afraid to ask to have certain tests just to clarify whether or not it is this condition that you have, because it is a big weight off your shoulders when you can have this condition and you know what you're dealing with. Resource-wise, the EOS network has been a massive help, and I recommend that to so many people if it sounds ever so slightly if they might have an EOE kind of condition.